When I was planting corn years ago, I kept looking up to see how far I'd gone. And every time, it felt like the end was getting further and further away. I was frustrated, even defeated. But the second I started to focus only on the seed in my hand, I dropped into a deep flow. Next time I looked up, I was nearly done. That's the power of presence. Hey everyone, Ricardo here checking in. And in today's video, I want to speak about presence. And to start, I just want to shine some light on the trap of focusing on the finish line. Oftentimes, personally, when I focus too much on the finish line, the journey itself starts to become heavy and slow. And to tie it into a live example, I want to elaborate a little bit on the story that I shared in the beginning. So after the raining season, we have a certain period of time where we go and plant. And that day in particular, it was time to plant corn. So we each set our own line and started off planting. So it was a pretty long line that I had to do. And when I was planting, you have your stick, you poke a hole into the ground, you drop 3 to 4 seeds in, and then you move on about a foot, and then you start planting the next one. And I didn't have a track of time, but I know that every time I was planting, I kept looking up, and basically the landmark was an avocado tree. And every time I would look up to see the avocado tree, it felt like it was getting further and further away. And this started to affect my mind. I started to feel very frustrated and almost felt like I was going crazy. I often link it to that illusion when you see that clown room, that the end door just keeps getting further and further away. This is the experience that I had. So after about half an hour, 45 minutes of feeling so defeated, I just released. I just focused on the current hole that I had to make and the seeds that I had to plant. And I started to get into a rhythm because initially when I was doing it, I had to bend down to put the seeds in. But I saw that some of the more experienced farmers there were just boom, and they're just tossing it in there. And it was just landing perfectly in the hole, cover up, move. So I started to focus on that and wanting to improve my skills. So I focused on making the hole, tossing it in, covering and going. And I became super focused on the present moment, on each hole, on each seed. That next thing I noticed when, I don't know how much time had passed, I was just in such a state of flow. I looked up and the avocado tree was very close to me. And that's where it really clicked for me. It's like, wow, okay, this is an example of life. Sometimes I get so focused on the end game and where I want to get to that I forget about the process. And I forget to be present during that process and really learn to enjoy it. That opens up the state of flow, and it allows for a state of being where it's enjoyable and you can be interactive with life as you're getting to your end game. Presence dissolves pressure by bringing us back to the current moment and really being present, one step at a time. What's the one thing I can do in this moment? And a little integration tip is when you catch yourself spiraling into that how much is left loop, take a breath. Your breath is your absolute best friend. It creates a little bit of space and it connects you back with your body. And ask yourself, what's the one thing I can do right now? Next, I want to speak about how presence creates flow. And more importantly, that piercing energy. In presence, we're not daydreaming about potential outcomes or regretting the past. Flow happens naturally because all of your energy is present in the moment, not scattered across different timelines or hypothetical situations. I really connect with a moment where I had just made a huge investment on myself for a skill that's going to better myself. And after I made that purchase, I experienced a panic attack. It was a large sum of money. And then my thoughts just started going sporadic and all the fear of, you just put your savings into this. What are you gonna do if a bill comes up, or what's gonna happen? What if you fail? All these different thoughts were starting to come to me. And I felt the shortness of my breath. I felt my chest tightening up. And in that moment, the inner master came in. It's like, hey, breathe. The one thing you can do right now is breathe. Take long, deep breaths. Make sure you're giving enough oxygen to your mind and to your body to be able to really process this. Create some space from your thoughts. So as challenging as it was, I brought my energy, my attention to my breath. And I really just started focusing on deep breaths, regardless of how loud the mind was starting to become. I just started breathing. And after about 5 minutes, I felt my heart rate slow down. And then I started to feel a little bit more clarity. And in that moment, I really connected with my being, with myself. And that trust that I've built over the years, I've put myself in a lot of uncomfortable and challenging situations, and I've always come out, and I reflect on life, and you can reflect on your life. Anytime you've been presented with a challenging situation, you're here today, you made it through. And this helped anchor myself into the belief in myself. And as I started to settle into that vibration and into that energy, the toxic thoughts started to disperse. They were no longer present. So it stemmed from, first, the one thing that I could do was just breathe. And once I connected and was able to do that, the next step naturally unfolded. And that came through presence. And this experience really just showed me that presence amplifies your connection with the inner master, that inner knowing of what step comes next. And a little integration tip that helped me start to cultivate this presence is pick one task. Next time you go into that task, drop into full presence. Notice all the details. Notice the textures, the sounds, the colors, the feelings. This starts to help cultivate that knowing of what it feels like when you are present. And it serves as a tool, especially when you get into those stressful moments, of being able to bring it back into the present moment and get into that piercing state of awareness. And the next point I'd like to share is that the inner master lives in the now. The inner master doesn't dwell on the what ifs or what now. The inner master resides in this place of stillness, of sureness, of quiet confidence. Presence allows you to silence the chatter of the mind. It allows you to become the observer of your thoughts and not so tied to your thoughts. When I'm not fully present, my thoughts can take me into so many hypothetical situations. I've noticed in the past when I've had to have challenging conversations that my mind goes into so many hypothetical ways that it could go, usually in the worst case scenario. And what does that do? I feel it in my body. Naturally, I start to feel it in my stomach, like just a sense of uneasiness. And when my body starts to feel uneasy, I see that as a trigger. Like my body's telling me, like, hey, something's going on here. It's not healthy for you. And once that snaps you back into the moment, that uncomfortability, I start to say, okay, well, then what am I thinking? And I bring my attention to my thoughts. And once I start to observe them and I see, oh, okay, this is not healthy. My body is reacting because it does not like it. Then I start to decide, okay, so this is the thought. What's the belief? Is the belief that I'm not good enough? Okay, if it is, what's the seed that I choose to plant instead? And once I name it, I'm able to pull the weed of the belief and the thoughts that are not healthy for me, that my body's telling me like, hey, this isn't good. And I start to plant the seed of the belief that I choose to replace it with. And then naturally the thoughts that stem from that belief start to replace that thought form that wasn't healthy for me. And when I get to these states of presence, decisions feel lighter. I don't feel so much thoughts going back and forth. Should I do this? No, it's like there's this place of stillness. My body feels aligned with the decision that I made. It's clear, and the chatter of the mind is silent, and I'm able to move forward with more clarity. And this creates momentum and more trust in myself. So a little practice I'd like to share. I do this practice every day, in the morning and the evening, just more or less aligning with my highest self. And before any big decision or if something were to come up, instead of reacting, I breathe. Again, the breath is our best friend. And I ask myself, what would the highest version of Ricardo do? How would he move through this? As I begin to ponder that, I start to connect with the characteristics of that version of myself. Well, he's confident, he's sure, he's compassionate. And as I start to embody all of these characteristics, it just makes it so much easier to move through the situation. I'm not reacting, I'm responding. I'm choosing how I want to move through this. And that helps for a lighter experience all in all. And the last point I want to speak about is that presence makes the journey feel effortless. And to bring it back to the story of the seeds, it's, again, when I was so focused on getting to the avocado tree, it just kept going further and further away. And the moment I stopped caring about it and let go and just really just locked into the moment, next thing I knew, I was right there. And every time you anchor yourself to the current present moment and the current step, not the 100 steps ahead, progress flows naturally. Really, I've heard this so many times before, and once it became a knowing, you learn to enjoy the process. You're actively creating. You're actively defining who you are. You're actively creating the life that you choose, and you're not being reactive. So this state of presence allows you to become a true creator of your reality. One visualization that's been really big for me is I saw this image of a marble being sculpting itself. So the top part was finished and the rest was this massive block. And in the picture, that same block was chiseling away. And I found so much power in that. Every day we are actively becoming. And this is a fun process, just learning to shift the perspective, bring it back to this present moment, and stop fixating so much on where it is that we're looking to get to. Yes, it's good to have that compass and that direction. However, we can only move from the space that's right here around us right now. And if you resonate with this message or any of the messages from any of my other videos, I have a link to my newsletter below. I share more real-life application of these principles and also give updates on more recent videos that I release. So feel free to go ahead, click the link and subscribe. And also, for those of you who want to go a little bit deeper and maybe talk a little bit more about what's moving in your life, we can share and discuss some different principles that may be useful to you to move forward with more clarity. Thank you all for joining, and until next time, family, hausch hausch.